and welcome to the iTricks interview. This week we have a very, very special guest, creator and performer, Alain Nu. Alain, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thank you very, very much for joining us here in the iTricks interview. Let's get right into the questions. Where do you see TV magic going? And this is obviously, you can speak with some experience since you've been there before.
Well, I think that currently we're in a state, especially with the way the TV business runs today, in which there's a lot of very, very quick things happening, and we're at a point in which there's a lot of really fast turnaround. So my feeling is that the direction that it's probably going to take will have something to do with being able to keep up with that pacing, because usually these days when you talk to a producer, it's really, the bottom line question is going to be, how many of them can you give us? Because they want a lot from you these days. And they know that, where there's an endless resource, there's money to be made. So my feeling is that anyone who can create a kind of endless resource for magic will be able to move it forward in the world of television.
Now, when you say how many of them can you give us, you mean episodes, right?
I mean full programs,
Full
not
program.
just effects. Effects would be just one 10th or 20th of a program.
Now, how does that translate magically, having to produce so much content in one sitting for, let's say just for example's sake, the production of a season?
Well, my feeling is that it's frankly impossible to do it, and therefore what you're seeing, especially with people like Chris Angel, are kind of shows that kind of do the most that it possibly can without having to do as many effects as possible. So that would be one way of being able to create an interesting show, is to just sort of focus on like one particular effect or two particular effects, and then try to explore that in the most entertaining way possible. But unfortunately, it's I don't think that totally fools producers into thinking that that's necessarily a good thing. Though I'll give props to the Angel that indeed he's been able to pull that off for quite a while now, and do a pretty good job at it. Though I don't actually watch his show regularly, so I don't know exactly how many he does per show, or any type of real numbers with regards to that.
So what would you tell an aspiring television magician?
An aspiring TV magician, I would say, well, first of all, prepare. You always want to be able to make sure that you're fully covered, and make sure that when you approach the networks with a plan, that it be a completely full plan that they completely understand from top to bottom. That would be the best way to actually give them anything that they all feel is worth their while.
You mentioned a lot of the complications that go into making a modern magic television show. Is there any chance that we could see Alain Nu back on TV anytime soon?
I hope so. We're gonna start working on that pitch. I've got a 2-year-old girl that is running around the house these days, and so it's kind of it's a little bit different. But I've taken basically what's happened is I've taken a 3-year hiatus just to have this wonderful new person in my life, and so now I'm starting to get the itch again. I sort of feel like a lot of the magic that's been out there has sort of shown me a good example of what is out there, and what can potentially be made for a future type of dealings, and I think that I might have a couple of ideas to share with everyone. So who knows? We'll see.
What would be the biggest lesson that you've learned from the first go around?
Well, the first go around, we didn't really prepare anything, so I would say the biggest lesson that we learned was that you really want to be as prepared as possible and understand what you're going into when you go into it. I basically just said yes to a deal that kind of came in, which originally I only thought was one show, and so when it turned into four shows, they really wanted it to turn into six shows, and when it turned into four shows, I was kind of, I was a little skeptical, especially with the formula that they were giving me, because it wasn't my formula, it was their formula. My feeling is that because we know our business a little bit better than most TV producers do, perhaps the best thing to do is to come up with a complete formula which they can totally understand. Otherwise, they're going to basically come to you and say, "How many tricks can you do?" And though it's possible, I mean, these days there's so much magic that's going on. I think that there's it's definitely possible to pull off a show which consists of solely effect after effect. I just think that it might behoove us to actually consider the possibility of making those effects mean something and give some sort of direction or some sort of real meaning to magic or mentalism or whatever you want to call it, mystery entertainment. Some sort of a way for the audience to truly appreciate it without necessarily having to expose the secrets. I think that becomes the real quest for someone like us to actually come up with something to really grab the audience and make them really want to watch what we're doing. And not necessarily want or care to know how it's done, but perhaps want to search deeper into the meaning of what it is that we're doing.
Meaning and magic, you say? You might be on to something, Alain Nu.
It's something that a lot of people consider, but I think that at the same time, we tend to get caught up in the glamour of just knowing how to do the trick and be able to perform it well for TV. Oftentimes, that's work enough as it is, and so things like hidden poetry and stuff like that is oftentimes lost on the set.
Yeah. All right. What would you tell a young Alain Nu? The way that we like to phrase this with the iTricks interview is, let's say you could go back to any point in time in your life, and you could go back with one message that you would tell yourself. How old would you be, and what would the lesson be?
I would probably say that right around the time that I was about 16 years old, I would, if I could go back in time and speak to myself at age 16, I would probably say something to the extent of, do yourself a favor and really learn from those elders that are trying to give you a helping hand. Do yourself a favor and really read the effects that you've learned, and understand that the touches are already there, and that you can actually learn to utilize the touches that you can already learn from the books that you already have. I think that one of the biggest problems that young magicians oftentimes face, because they move in packs and they learn from each other and stuff, is the fact that they'll learn an effect perhaps from a friend of theirs, but they won't actually learn the effect itself from, say, the actual text that it came from, and what they end up losing are the really great subtle nuances that those texts actually have. So there's really important stuff to learn when you actually read those nuances and actually learn those things that are in those texts. And so if you learn something and you know something, and maybe you've learned it from a friend, my biggest advice to you is to find it and read it in the book and really try to understand the little tiny subtleties that go into actually performing the effect, because you'll find that it'll give you directions that perhaps you didn't even realize existed.
Just to go back 2 steps, are we to maybe draw, to this conclusion that maybe 14, 15-year-old Alain Nu was a bit of a know-it-all, wanted to find his own way a little bit too eagerly?
I think that we have a tendency to try to move very, very fast, especially when we're young, to try to reach the next level, and oftentimes we end up skipping a few steps on the way, and it's a natural progression. And I definitely know that I'm definitely the culprit of doing that several times over, and perhaps even to this day. But but still, I think that it's important to really always go back to the basics. And as one of my favorite martial arts instructor always says, is that the real pros will always go back and learn like the basics of what it is that they're doing, just so that they have a full grasp of their true foundations.